How many times is your team stuck in a bottleneck and can't get something done because someone, maybe you, is out of the business for a bit? Or there's been a business crisis that requires serious attention. It's so frustrating for your team when they want to move forward, but they don't have the answer, the next step, the file, or the approval because the person who has it is not available. When we rely too heavily on a specific person to keep our operations running smoothly, it's risky. Let's have a look at what we can do to minimize that risk. Today, we'll talk about why being process dependent is the way to go instead of being people dependent. And do you say process or process? Either one works for me. Welcome to the Stacking Your Team podcast. This podcast is for anyone looking to strengthen their leadership skills and build a high-performing team. I'm your host, Shelli Warren. Leading people can be tough, but it's a skill we can all continue to develop. You already know that whether your workplace is big or small, people are your greatest asset and often your largest expense. That's why you take your role seriously and want to keep growing as a leader. You'll find that each episode is designed to provide practical solutions that you can apply immediately. So let's dive into today's episode with a couple of quick reminders. No one escapes team troubles, including me, and the team that got you here may not be the team that will get you there. If you're like most business owners, you've reached a point in your growth journey that documentation of your processes, your workflows, your standards, and your daily activities is absolutely necessary. Now, back in the day, when it was just you and maybe an assistant, it was okay that all that information was up in your head. But you have a team now, maybe multiple locations, and maybe your team is a mix of remote, hybrid, or in-person work schedules. And it's common for people not to see one another for long periods of time. So digital organization of data is super important too. Here at Stacking Your Team, my clients are encouraged to document the heck out of everything so that she can take quality time away from the business with zero interruptions. We also want this high level of unplugging to regularly happen for her leadership team members' vacation time too. After all, that's what it's all about. Putting the right people and processes in place so that the team is agile and everyone knows how to make good decisions without the need for any hand-holding. My clients like to celebrate with each other when they've been able to leave the business for a vacation or family need or quality CEO time, and nobody misses them. No Slack or text messages, and the team carries on doing what they all do really well anyways, proving to themselves that they are fully qualified in their roles to maintain the business. So if you're like most business owners, you do a better job of planning for a maternity leave or a parental leave because those are predictable with a set amount of time off, and you usually have some lead-up time to wrap up projects and hand off tasks to someone else who will be temporarily taking over that ownership area. Did you know that up here in Canada, our maternity leaves are a standard 12 months? And many new parents choose to extend that by another 4 months. So this leads business owners to have to do a great job of pre-planning coverage and often hire in and train, or they choose to cross-train, promote, or redeploy, or even restructure the team all together to cover a maternity leave or a parental leave. In my corporate days, we would have referred to this as a broadening assignment, meaning an opportunity for someone to learn a different side of the business while someone was away, therefore broadening their knowledge of the company and adding some variety of work and leadership stretch for the person. So in your small business, you can be on top of this too, so that you're not so people dependent. Just like all of my clients, you also want an agile team. You've discovered that the more flexible and nimble your team is, the better you can respond to unexpected circumstances. But you'll never have an agile team if your documentation is mediocre or non-existent, or if it's old, missing sequences, no real owner, or no real format. Or a common scenario is someone writes an SOP and doesn't test it out. And by testing it out, I mean having someone else follow it. She then skips off for vacation, and the coworker goes to use the SOP, but it crashes. It's also frustrating. Now, I get it. For most people, processes are not exciting, and it can feel like a lot of documentation for safety's sake, because the people who lead these processes know them like the back of their hand. But what if we wanted to promote that team member? Will she take all that knowledge with her to the next role, or even a new location, leaving behind a team to figure it all out? No, we wouldn't want to do that, now would we? So having that SOP directory probably doesn't light up everyone's life on the team, well, until they're desperate and they need to quickly find out how to do something. But it sure is handy when we're onboarding a new team member or redeploying work across the team. And the great thing about building a directory is that you can link and store additional resources to help finding everything super easy. I also love a tool that sparks self-sufficiency and holds people accountable to find the answers themselves instead of needing their handheld. But here's the thing. I find that for some leaders, they do understand the value of having the process documented across the business, but they don't want to actually be involved in creating it. Okay, I get it. It can feel overwhelming, especially if your business is complex and you have a large team. It's a project for sure, one that can bring the team together and showcase individual strengths and knowledge bases. So I'm encouraging you to think of it like a team project. In the Leadership Lab, we have a framework that outlines all the steps necessary to do a bang-up job on this. But for today, let's get you started by shifting you into wanting to make this happen so that you can eliminate those people constraints and create more operational excellence right across your whole business. Now, I know it feels like a lot, but we can simplify it by dividing your business into functions or departments, or what I like to call profit centers. And then we'll prioritize the critical processes for each one. We'll start with those. And then let's get the people closest to the work, because they know the most about the work, to brainstorm that list. Then we'll create some milestone activities and celebration moments, and your team will keep the momentum going. And oh yes, be sure to provide, and then agree upon, and then set the expectation that all processes are to be documented. They're going to use the same format with the same template and the same naming convention for your digital file storage. So as we wrap this up, let's also consider how you can reduce the risk of being so people-dependent and stop relying on specific people. After all, there will be times when they need to step out of the business. And sure, most times their absences will be planned. However, we know that there will be times when it'll all happen unexpectedly. So how can we prepare for this and nurture more agility into your team? First, let's start by choosing a primary owner of the process and a secondary owner who is trained, qualified, and who has practiced this. Someone who's actually executed these tasks and they've used the SOP. In some organizations, this can look like a quarterly ownership for one person who then hands it off to another person for the next quarter. This can work really well for inventory management, client outreach, staff scheduling, maybe leading the daily huddle, or facilitating the KPI dashboard reviews, or maybe leading a project that's executed each year on a drumbeat. It's real-time valuable cross-training. This type of shared leadership can really help people feel like they belong and that their work is valued. You'll also see a newfound respect for everyone who has those responsibilities. Another point to consider in your business is that if you're thinking that at some point you may want to sell your business? Have a think about this. The built-to-sell model has a higher valuation price when the potential buyer of your business sees long-standing evidence that you have, by design, created a business that is process-dependent, not people-dependent. This adds a high level of confidence to take over your business because of the concern that they'd have that some team members will leave when the new owner arrives or as the CEO exits out. It's high-risk stakes for that new owner to be left to run a business with limited team members who are cross-trained or with little to no process documentation. So, when you can show off that you have an agile team and a strong foundation of documentation with owners, that new buyer will be so much more confident to lay the money down. If you found today's episode helpful, please share it with a friend. Tag us on Instagram at Stacking Your Team. Maybe leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or visit our website and grab some free resources. Don't miss out on that. Everything we do here at Stacking Your Team is designed to help you strengthen your leadership skills and build a high-performing team. So I'll see you on Instagram or LinkedIn. And of course, I'll be right here next week to join you as you step into expanding your leadership skills even further. See you then.